for yourself. I went from being this lost teenager to being a fierce queen.
Oh my goodness! Beauty is confidence.
It's knowing that you're worth it.
Hello and welcome to the Explosion Network's review feels discussion of Queer Eye Season 3. Joining me in this video is Ashley Hobley.
Hey Dylan, excited to be here to talk about five guys going to people's houses and getting rid of half their stuff.
Okay, that's a fine description of the show. That's a very fine description of the show. Also, Cherie.
Hello. I'm also excited to be here. Also excited to talk about Five Guys dressing people up and making their lives amazing.
That's good, because that's what we're here for. So,
Five guys going to people's lives and telling them what they're doing wrong.
Oh my god. Why do you have such a dark view on the show?
It's very nice.
It's very nice.
Hitting him with the hard truth, but nobody else will.
Yeah, okay, sure. So what we're going to be doing is we're gonna grab everyone's overall thoughts on season 3 itself, and then the idea will be to go through each episode, talk about what we liked and how we felt about watching it, and then we're going to rate every episode on a 0 to 10 feels, and then a 0 to 10 just what you'd rank the episode. And then by the end of the whole thing, hopefully we have some sort of the best episode as ranked by the Explosion Network of Queer Eye Season 3 with the according mathematical equation of feels to score ratio coming out on top. So, starting with you, Ash, what were your overall thoughts of Queer Eye Season 3?
I think it was more Queer Eye. It was another solid season. The thing I think I mentioned on What Do You Want to Watch, said when we were talking about it, is it didn't have like the standout episodes that we had like last season with that like broke everybody. I think it was a lot more even spread of different things that will probably affect different people differently. But yeah, overall very good. More of the same. Still the best feel good television available today, and probably tomorrow as well.
Probably tomorrow as well.
Maybe next week.
Maybe as well next week. Cherie, what are your overall thoughts on season 3?
I agree. I don't think there was like specific standout episodes. I don't know if it was like as feelsy for me this season. I feel like other seasons like really got me, but it could have been because we were having more of those hard hitting episodes. So I think overall like really solid season, enjoyable, loved it. But yeah, the feels were a bit up and down for me.
Mm-hmm. I think it was another good season. It's more Queer Eye. It's not much to complain about. When it comes to the feels discussion, I guess it's like, well, they had a lot of big things happen in the second season, of course, like big storylines and stuff and feelsy stuff. And I feel like if they were constantly chasing those feelings, then it could potentially make the show get into a stage where it's trying to chase a certain emotional thing rather than just doing what the show kind of sets out to do. And then if you get stuck in a ever rotating, like chasing your own tail of having to want to make the audience get constantly upset, then it's just like the show may end up being like forced by producers to be like fake somewhat or whatever. I'm not saying it is now, but like I feel like if you're chasing that bone, then you go down a rabbit hole, I guess. So I'm fine with it.
Yeah, but it's happy feels as well. It's not just sad. Like it's not sad feels. It's happy feels. You know, just an explosion coming from your heart.
Yes, I'm fine with the season. I have no problem with it. It's just it's hard to not compare it and be like, oh, there was a lot of big ones in season 2 and stuff. So it's like I enjoyed the show. It was more Queer Eye. It's great. Love the show. But it, like when you're ranking the seasons, I'd still rank season 2 obviously as the top dog, I guess, of Queer Eye at this point. But it's weird to rank them because it's a weird show to rank seasonally. But we're going to rank the episodes of this season.
So it's a hard show to rank, but we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Hashtag for the content. So it's worthwhile. All right, so let's jump in and work our way through the episodes here. I will give the synopsis as grabbed via IMDb for each episode, in case you've kind of forgot what's going on, and then we can talk about what we liked, didn't like, or just whatever, and then we'll, of course, end it by ranking each episode. So the first episode was called From Hunter to Huntee. The synopsis via IMDb read, she can hunt, fish, and grow her own food, but this self-sufficient woman needs help when it comes to crafting a look that's both womanly and powerful. I'd made sure to note in my notes for this one that I saw a lot of people complaining online that they found this to be the worst episode of the season, because a lot of people didn't. Their argument was that it was weird for the Queer Eye guys who have such a like progressive outlook, and the show has such a progressive outlook, to be like supporting someone who's about like hunting for sport, I guess. Like a lot of people didn't like that, which is something that as soon as the episode started, although I wasn't like, this is horrible. It just made me think people are going to react badly to this. And sure enough, they kind of did. So yeah. Ash, what do you think about that? What do you think about the episode?
I mean, that's the kind of people they should be helping. Like, get those people on board with your progressive ideas, you know? Them right peoples. Right-wing peoples. Yeah. Well, I guess it's true. Don't see many. No, leave it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good, solid episode. I liked her transformation. Obviously, they did a really good job, and that was probably the moment where her family comes in and sees her, like for the first time, all glammed up and everything, was probably one of the highlights of the season, in my opinion.
Yeah, really, of the whole season.
One of the top feel emotional moments, I think.
Sure. Yeah. What? Cherie, what do you think?
Yeah, I liked the episode. I think they did an awesome transformation. Even though it wasn't really a transformation, it was more like an inner transformation, obviously, not as much physical.
Yeah.
So I think she was just regaining like a lot of herself and exactly what she wanted to do, which was just to be a little bit more feminine. And yeah, I thought it was good. It was probably just mid-range for feels for me, but I do agree that there was a couple of moments throughout the episode that were standout. And yeah, I thought it was interesting. The hunting thing was kind of like for me, because I'm not obviously into hunting. I don't really strike you as a hunter sort of person. The only thing that bothered me about this episode Gotta catch them all. The thing that bothered me about this episode is that it was hunter to huntee, whereas I wish they'd called it hunter to huntress.
Yes.
That really bothered me.
Yeah.
Like, that really bothers me, guys. I can't handle it. I need to make sure the time
it was a missed opportunity.
It was a missed opportunity. I do agree. It was a missed opportunity. Yeah, I feel like this was definitely an episode that wasn't really going to hit home for me. I found it fine. I don't like hunting either, or not for sport, obviously. I think if you know me, it's not really something that's going to hit for me. So it's like the fucking house is just full of dead animals and camo and whatever else. I'm like, yep, this is cool. That's exciting. But
yeah, it was really hard to see her with all that camo on.
Yeah. But she seemed nice. She seemed nice, and they were married, right? The husband, boyfriend, I can't remember now. I think they were married. The husband
it was the
seemed
10-year
nice
anniversary.
As well. Yeah. It was. Yeah.
Did you watch the show?
I did, but we were recording this like 2-3 weeks after watching the season, to be fair, behind the scenes. No, yeah. So overall, I enjoyed it though. Not my favorite, not my least favorite episode season. Just definitely is probably going to fall somewhere in the middle here for me. Ash, what is your score for the episode first?
The episode score? I'm going to give it a 7.
Yep. And then what are your feels?
Feel score 7.
Really? That's
decently... Like I said, that moment where family sees her for the first time, like not in camo and stuff, like
it hit
was really moving. I thought, yeah.
And
it was the first episode, so it might have had a bit of
okay,
it was easy.
It was easy punches.
Yeah, because you hadn't been trained to get these emotional moments yet. So.
Fair enough. Cherie, what is your score for the episode?
I think it was 7.5 for me for the episode.
Yeah, and then your
But
feels.
the feels was 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10. Okay, that's more around the range. All right, so I gave the episode a 7.5 because I felt like as an episode it was good and entertaining and a good story and stuff like that. Although it wasn't super relatable for me, although I just felt like the episode was good. But because the episode wasn't super relatable for me, I did give the feels a 4. It didn't do much for me at all. So I got the lowest. We got a 4. We got a 5. We got a fucking way higher Ash over here with the 7. Yeah. Fair enough. All right. So
I think
on.
it's interesting. It's interesting to sort of discuss the episodes like this too, because we're obviously going to relate to them all in different ways. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what you guys think of the rest of the season based on just that first one alone.
Yeah.
Well, my score's close to yours. Ash's is the highest.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Ash is going to love every episode. Moving on to episode 2, which is titled Lost Boy. Synopsis via IMDb. The Fab Five go back to camp to help a scraggly outdoorman put down the roots and create a cool home for his teenage son. This was it's easily just described as the hippie camp episode, really, isn't it?
Yep.
Ash, what did you think of episode 2 here?
Yeah, another solid episode. It was fine. I wasn't overly invested in the story. The guy, obviously, just how he lives was interesting, I guess, and the camper and stuff. But yeah, Bobby did an awesome job on that renovation. Probably one of the top ones.
It was probably one of the better
ones
ones of the season because it was a completely empty space. So he got a clean canvas to do with what he wills for the guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about his story?
Yeah.
Wasn't really hitting any points for you. The story.
No.
Not very relatable.
No. No. Yeah, not very hippie, surprisingly.
No.
Yeah.
Cherie?
I guess him wanting to be closer to his son, I guess, was hit the feels a little bit, but
yeah. Cherie?
When I saw this guy, I thought, wow, how are they going to turn this guy around? And I thought to myself, the more that the episode went on, I thought to myself, this guy is just how he is. There's no, I was waiting for what the actual underlying issues really were for him, and I thought, is he actually like he lives like this, but it seems like it's more of a choice until they kind of revealed a little bit more about him, and you could see that his confidence like grew over the time. And I thought it was a good episode. It wasn't super feelsy, but I feel like by the end of it, the guy really he came out of his shell and did have that spark to him that he didn't have in the beginning. And the transformation for him, I thought, was one of the best ones of the season, like physically, because they did take away his beard and all.
He looked a lot
stuff.
different by the time they.
He looks so much younger. Oh my goodness! And then, the room as well was just crazy how they did that, and his space for his son and everything. I thought it was good.
There's a lot of they had a lot of story there because it's a guy who, from what I gathered, was a drunk, and that's kind of what destroyed his relationship with his ex-partner and kind of stuffed up his life somewhat. It seems like that he was a full-on alcoholic is kind of what I gathered somewhat, and then after his relationship broke down, he moved away, cleaned up his act obviously, and now he's taken up this job in his camp. So it's an interesting story behind there, but also I feel like he's just in the reason a lot of things he was doing was kind of self-punishment is what I was kind of getting. And although the episode didn't dive too heavily into that stuff because like none of the Fab Five are like mental health experts, I suppose, is the is kind of where you'd want to take that. But there was a lot of stuff into that there that I thought was down a different path. But he seemed like, yeah, some guy who was just trying to fix up his life and make good decisions for himself, plus his kid who he wanted to have a relationship with, obviously. His kid seemed to like his dad, and so that was good.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, he
they
hated
seemed
being
a lot-
there or something like that. He was like, oh, I'm happy to be with my dad. Like, oh, no, not 2 weeks of dad at camp again kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would assume that they, with his background, that maybe he wouldn't get to see his son, or it's taken a while for him to have the opportunity to actually spend time with his son.
Potentially.
In these situations, that is quite often what happens. But they seem to have more of a like close friendship sort of thing. And then he seemed to be wanting to take on more of that father figure role, which now maybe he can. But I think it was just like finding that confidence in himself to be like, okay, I've done my time for where I went wrong in life, and I actually deserve this now, and I can be this good father, and I, can provide what I need to for my son. So, yeah, I thought that was like quite nice, and yeah, you're right. I did like the relationship that they had, because it seemed like even though he obviously felt like he was a certain type of dad, or in a certain type of atmosphere. Obviously, his room was trashed and whatever else. But the son, I got the impression, didn't really see that. He just saw his dad.
Yeah. He says like several times about the reason he likes the way he looks and stuff like that is he's like, oh, I want to be relatable. Like the reason the kids like talking to me is because I'm relatable, and I look relatable and all these things. I don't look like a typical adult is basically the thing he's saying. But yeah, then it just seems like his son doesn't really care about that because it's just his dad. Like he doesn't need to look and act the way he does, even if the rest the other people at camp are probably like, here comes hippie, whatever his name is again, down to talk to us. So yeah, I thought it was an interesting episode with an interesting story where the core thing was kind of about a father-son relationship somewhat, I guess. I was worried for a second though, because I thought it was actually going to turn out that the kid was like, oh, I hate being here, I hate dad, camp sucks. But it was good that it wasn't that. It was the complete opposite. So, well, somewhat the complete opposite.
Yeah.
The kid was kind of like,
yeah,
it's okay being here. I like being with my dad, but the camp aspect, he seemed like, nah, go with or without for sure. Ash,
I think.
Okay, go. Yep.
I just had one more point on that. I think the other thing that really got me on this episode was when the guy said, when Tan says to him, "What do you see when you look at yourself in the mirror?" And the guy says, "Passable." That was like so. That hurt my heart, because I feel like there's so many people that would think the same thing about themselves, and to hear someone say it, it's so. Like, it's just, you just feel for them, and because you can feel it in yourself. But I think that was, obviously when he said he didn't shower and stuff, I thought, oh, I don't know how this is going to go. But when he was like, passable, I was like, oh, I feel for this guy. He is like sad inside. So it was nice to see the transformation and him become like a happier person.
You're like, I feel for you, but maybe shower at least once a day.
But you got this, mate. Have a shower. Wear some non-cotton clothes to let it breathe, and go from there.
Go from there. Yeah. Ash, what are you going to rate this episode?
The episode 6.5, and the feels a 5.
Wow. Wowzers. Interesting. All right, Cherie, what are you going to rank the episode?
The episode was a 7 out of 10 for me, and the feels was like 6.5.
Okay. Interesting. We got some interesting results here, everyone. I'm giving the episode 7.5. I thought it was a good story and a good relationship, and interesting story and I say it's weird because I got to say characters, but I'm like, they're real people, but you kind of know what I mean. Interesting stuff happening. I gave the feels a 6. I felt the overall not much hit for me. I felt like the wanting to do good for the son aspect was a was hitting me somewhat, I guess, but the rest of it was meh. I wasn't like, oh yeah, I relate to learning to take a shower. That's really hitting it. That's really hitting it home. All right, let's move on to episode 3, which is called Jones Barbecue. Synopsis via IMDb. They've built a business on slow-cooked barbecue and a secret sauce. Now, these hard-walking sisters are finally getting the break they deserve. What are you laughing at over there? It's a epic mealtime thing.
Your sauce.
Yeah, it's epic mealtime. Ash knows what's up. Don't you, Ash? You know what's up. You
Yep.
got Harley Monster. Yeah, thank you very much.
Harley showed up halfway. You was in the background.
Harley
You just didn't see him.
I sure do wish. So this episode, I'll go first on this one because I kind of want to get this one out of the way. I feel like this is definitely, and like, this is my favorite episode of the season. This is that's an easy lock-in for me. I feel like this had the best kind of. It was out of all the episodes. It felt like these were the two people who kind of really deserved the helping hand so much. They felt like they really kind of earned it. They seemed really nice. They were like interesting. It was like every aspect of this episode I was 100% into. It hit me in the feels at certain points, which we'll get into in a moment and stuff. But I just want to kind of kick it out the door straight away that before we get to it, this is my favorite episode of the season for sure. Ash, how do you feel about this episode?
I was just about to say everything you just said.
Okay.
Yeah, this is easily my favorite episode of the season. They're just really nice characters, nice people. And there was barbecue in it, so there was like delicious food in it that looked great.
Extra point there.
Very hungry.
Very hungry. Cherie?
And yeah, again, probably
point.
the most emotional moment of this season. I think it was in this episode for me.
Cherie?
Yeah, I'm on board.
So this
Give
is
me some
everyone's
of those
favorite
ribs.
episode?
Give some of them BBQs.
BBQs.
Yeah, I think it was my favorite episode of the season. It yeah, I think too because like they seemed like they just worked so hard in life, you know, and they just felt like that. It just felt like they really deserved everything that they gave them.
Well, it's like sometimes the show is aspects about like karma and people helping out, like people with like stuff to do with inside themselves. But then another aspect of the show is obviously they come in and they fucking pimp your ride. And this episode was the one where it's like they, out of everyone in the entire season, deserve the pimp my ride aspect the most out of everyone else, as well as the obviously the personal journey about helping them discover things about themselves and whatever.
Yeah, sometimes it's a you deserve it, and then most of the time it's you need it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So what, Ash? What is the moment you're talking about that you reckon was
when they give which one is it? Mary, I think.
I can't remember. Sorry, I'll have to look it up.
They fixed her smile. They fixed her teeth.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, that was
got me.
Broke down. Yeah, it was a beautiful moment. You saw how much it meant to her. Yeah, beautiful.
I'm gonna start crying. Don't, Ash,
Yeah.
don't.
I'll say. Well, I started crying then too. I consider myself to have somewhat bad teeth and like not as bad as hers. Not to chuck her under the bus, but as someone who's had like bad teeth for like most of his life, I feel like it was kind of hitting a chord for me for sure. So yeah, I think this. Yeah, hold on. I don't think I cried. No, this was we get to episode 3 and I'm like, we're there, everyone. Queer Eye started.
It's back, baby.
It's back, everyone. Yeah, Cherie, what do you?
Yeah, they were just so funny though too. They were hilarious.
They were.
I couldn't stop laughing. They were just such characters. Like they were just. I think, you know, in a lot of the other episodes, the guys are bringing out who you truly are, whereas it's kind of the opposite in this episode where they already knew who they were. That was we saw exactly who they were, and then they just amplified that and then provided them with what they really have been working so hard for. And yeah, the best part absolutely was the smile thing. Just just got me right in the feels. And then
I mean,
yeah,
they set it up with
there
the
was-
bottling stuff where she gets really upset, like really emotional after that. And
Yeah.
then Mary says, "I'm the cool one. I don't cry at anything," and then proceeds to cry a lot later.
Yes. Well, that bottle thing I thought was quite emotional too, obviously. Like family
Yeah.
recipe, like you could
Legacy, pretty much.
yeah, the legacy of their whole family, and you could understand that they wanted to do it, but they at the same time they're like, no, it's like it's our family thing. They didn't want to let it go, and even though they wanted to, because they like understood business wise, they did wanted to grow as a business, but they didn't want to let it go because it was like a family thing. So
I think it was more they weren't they didn't have the resources.
no,
to actually
well,
do it.
yeah.
because she talks
Yeah.
about
Yeah, I
getting
think so
like
too.
she talks about getting the information, but never taking that step further to even like send an email back and inquire.
Yeah,
about
but
it.
it's because they didn't want to ask for help, which was the problem they've had the
I
whole
guess,
time.
yeah, asking for help. That's
I
true.
mean, they're two women in their
I don't know.
middle
actually.
age,
Yeah, somewhere.
still getting up at like 4 o'clock in the friggin' morning to barbecue
Yeah.
7 days a week.
Yeah.
Feeling crazy.
Yeah. Look, the amount of time that they're like, oh, we stand on our feet for this long. No, I'll die.
No.
I would
Get
die.
some chairs.
I would die. That's all I'm gonna say. In that small fucking room that they're cooking up that chicken and 7 people.
Yeah.
With no aircon? In
No aircon?
Kansas?
You're kidding me. You're kidding me, mate. So, you gotta be kidding me. Any last wrapping up thoughts on this episode? Ash.
Just our
Restaurant looks
Rating?
really good as well. Yeah.
It did. What are you gonna rank
man,
this
that-
episode, Ash?
When they got that pause machine, like as someone who works in retail, I'm like,
yeah.
thank God for
yeah.
I had a
Yeah.
similar thought, actually. Yeah. What are you gonna give the episode?
episode a 9 and feels a 9.
Wow, hitting high.
Yep.
Cherie, what are you gonna rank the episode?
I rated it an 8.5
Mhm.
and feels an 8.5 out of 10.
Compared to the previous episodes where we ranked out of 11. I gave the episode an 8.5 and I gave the feels an 8. So there.
Losing half a point.
Oh no, I feel like 10 is like I'm blubbering pretty much the entire episode, so I kind of gotta like I feel like our scales in our mind will be different, obviously, for what you consider 10. But for 10, a 10 for me is kind of like pretty much constantly on the edge of wanting to cry, and I kind of set that bar at like the episode 1, season 2 kind of thing, where it was kind of that. So that's kind of like the bar, and I ranked every episode this season around from that being a 10 or a 9.5 ish or something. All right, let's move on to episode 4 then. Episode 4 is titled "When Robbery Met Jamie." It says, IMDb description: with his wedding just days away, a self-deprecating groom must learn to love himself before he's ready to walk down the aisle. Ash, what do you think about this episode?
Yeah, this was another good one. I really enjoyed it. I thought he was an interesting character. Obviously, him dealing with those self-deprecation issues and sort of beating himself down constantly.
Camo in the mirror.
I could relate. Yeah. And I think great job. Nice wedding at the end. Yeah,
Nice
it was
wedding.
really sweet. Yeah.
Cherie?
Yeah, I liked this episode. There was a few things that drove me nuts, like the fact that his daughter was in the master bedroom
Yep.
and
That's
they were
just
sleeping in
bad
the
parenting.
basement.
Yep.
I'd
Bad
be like,
parenting.
Get out.
We wonder why kids are addicted to video games. Bad parenting like this. Just let them
And,
run roughshod.
Well, before it was
I
even
did find
brought up
it-
on the show, I was like, oh my god, if this episode doesn't end with that kid getting kicked out of that bedroom, I'm going to be
Yeah.
writing him to Netflix at gmail.com.
The best part about it, though, was that they didn't show her reaction to her room
I reckon she raged.
until the end. It was like, did they show a little bit at the end? I can't quite remember. I thought they did. No, they didn't show
They
it,
never
I
showed
think.
anything, and I reckon it's because I don't reckon she reacted too nicely to that.
No.
She seemed like a spoilt little brat,
yeah,
to be honest. So
I just thought like the baby's face in this episode for the whole episode was quite hilarious, and I think they made a really good turnaround because I think he he was the guy that spoke a lot, like just constantly yabbering on, and I think that he was a really good guy to begin with, and they just sort of grounded him a little bit and brought him out of his shell and made him that bit more positive. And yeah, there was that guy, there was a guy at the end of this episode where this was the one that he proposed at the end, wasn't it?
No. That's the last
I've got
episode.
notes on that one too. But yeah, no. But yeah, no, I really like this one. It was just, I think it was so good because he felt like a lot more in control by the time that they all finished.
This is the one who was constantly like making jokes about himself and from the get-go. Yeah.
And the butter.
And the what?
And the butter.
Oh yeah, the cooking,
butter and everything.
the cooking and stuff like that. Yeah, to make everything easy. This guy had a he was up on. I saw it last week on the Queer Eye Reddit, or earlier this week as I'm recording, or late last week. He actually posted on there and did like a AMA with people and stuff, and he was like, it was so good. Like they were great, and then it was funny because a lot of people asking questions were questions along the lines of, are they really that nice in real life? Like how like fake is the show and stuff? And he said, I found it interesting. He said one thing was that like often, obviously, he would kind of just, the producers would kind of just take him to places or be like, you're going to go over here now kind of thing. Because obviously the show's a lot of like, the person's getting taken all over the fucking place, left, right, and center. And he was like, he said that he was getting annoyed. He was getting pissed off. And he asked the producer like once like, can you give me some direction or something for the show? Like it was an acting thing. He's like, can you give me some direction for what I should be like doing or whatever? But they would never tell him where they were going or what was going to happen. So he was getting annoyed about that. But then he said that looking at the episode later, it obviously makes sense why it all needs to be a surprise, even though he was getting annoyed at the time of being like surprised constantly about where he's going. But that's kind of the point, I guess. And then he also said that there was a funny scene where, because Jonathan does another show called Game of Thrones. Is it Game of Thrones? Yeah. Game of Thrones.
Something like that.
Yeah. Like a Game of Thrones after show type thing, I guess, is the best way to describe it.
A South of King's Landing ripoff.
Yeah, South of King's Landing ripoff. And he said that he had watched that show prior and knew like who Jonathan was even before Queer Eye started, and then the two of them like recreated the intro scene that Jonathan does for that episode, and he was like pissed off that they cut it from this episode but could understand why they probably wouldn't want to be promoting another show from a different network within this show. But then he was also saying that everyone is as nice as they seem, and like Carmo just basically walks up and every word that comes out of his mouth makes you want to think about your life and change it. So I thought that was a little interesting thread. I thought the episode was good. It's the only kind of like Ash said, the part that was hitting for me was the self-deprecation stuff was relatable, but other than that, the rest of it not really hitting me. And then I spent a lot of the episode going, this fucking girl is so spoiled. Just get out of the bedroom. Fuck. Like, but yeah, good episode. What are you gonna rank it, Ash?
I'm going to give it a episode 7.5 and the feels a 7.5.
Fair enough. Cherie.
I gave the episode a 7 and the feels also a 7.
Okay. I gave the episode a 6.5, but I gave the feels a 7 because I feel like that mirror scene hit me a bit harder than the episode overall, I guess. Right.
Also, I like the interstitials where they got elderly couples to say stuff.
That was
interesting touch.
I forgot about that actually a little bit until there was that one funny scene with the people, that old couple at the end as well. Yeah, it's fun. They must have gone and filmed that. Be like, can we grab like couple old people for a day, like just some random old people? So like,
you just get a
take them outside.
Just the experienced kid with a camera. Can you just go film?
Just go film some old people.
Just go ask some old people for marriage advice.
Yeah, just sort it out. Yeah, that's fun. Yeah. All right, episode 5 is titled Black Girl Magic. IMDb description. A young lesbian struggling with her identity opens her heart to let people in, only to discover she's much stronger than she realized. Ash, what are your overall thoughts for this episode?
Yeah, it was a really nice episode. Obviously, she's a really strong person with a like hard background. Obviously, her relating to Bobby, who's got a similar sort of backstory of like being abandoned by your adopted family after you come out, probably was really hit the emotional beats. And then for her to re-meet her half sister, that was another great emotional moment as well. So yeah, really good episode. And then they've really made over their house. I mean, she's like one of the imagine being the flatmates though. You come in, they redo the living room, redo the kitchen, redo her bedroom, and then you've still got your crappy bedroom. Yeah.
Oh well. Good laundry fix up.
Just steal some stuff, I guess.
Yeah, do what we need to do. Cherie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was feel good. I agree with everything that Ash said, and I think it's good because she was younger as well, so they were really helping her to sort of find exactly who she is. And it's also about, obviously not being someone else for other people, just being you. And I think it was kind of good that they took on board everything that she said, and then they just helped her express that a lot more. And yeah, I can appreciate that because I think even still, there's people later in life that still don't really know who they are, or they're afraid to be exactly who they are and be comfortable in that. And yeah, I think it's great that I thought it was funny when they took her to the dance studio and she thought that they were gonna be dancing, and then obviously she was just there to talk about like black female empowerment
history
and
and
things.
stuff,
and history. So it was awesome. So yeah, I thought this was a really good, feels good episode, and a great start for her being slightly younger to kind of kickstart her future.
This is probably one of my favorites of this season. As much as I appreciate like that this new version of Queer Eye obviously just does anyone and everyone, there's still something I like about obviously a bunch of queer people helping out other queer people. So it's like that's kind of what the show is built on, and it's whenever they do an episode that's like that, I enjoy it. And like her story was, because she's confident, right? She's never like shy. She seems confident in who she is, but then I guess it's that she's like constantly, I can't remember what she is. It's like, what is it? Leather chopper? No, what wood chopper look or whatever. Like
lumberjack.
Like she's
lesbian lumberjack.
Yeah, I just felt like
that's a style choice.
I felt like because of what happened to her, like with her adopted family and stuff, it kind of just forced her into like she was accepting of who she was somewhat, but then she was like forcing herself to be in a like having to put many more like fit yourself into certain category tags, labels. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like by the end of this episode, it's like you don't actually need to do that. You can just be yourself. And they were like 90% of the time we've spent with you, you're kind of just yourself, and you're for some reason over here saying that you're a lumberjack lesbian, and we haven't like seen that at all. Like, what do you reckon you are now? And by the end of the episode, she of course chucks away that tag and stuff. And then my other favorite thing about this episode is what you mentioned before about the adopted stuff and Bobby. Like, I really loved how in this episode where they got Bobby to basically do what would normally be a camo job, which was that when it came to discussing what it's like his speciality.
Oh, he just got the week off.
No, yeah, basically. But when it came to like her adopted sister and stuff, like that's obviously normally a camo, like that's his thing, right? To do with that sort of thing. But because it was closer to Bobby and like more relatable to Bobby and his past experiences, having him do that scene and do the meet up with the sister and all that sort of stuff, I felt it kind of just proved to me that like as a group, like they could make that decision, and like they weren't structured as a show to be like, yeah, Carmo has to do that because that's what he's like on this show for. Like you need to let Karma do that because that's what he's here for. I just feel like behind the scenes it just gave me this image of them being like, no, Bobby's.
No, they're a team. They do use whoever's best suited to the
best suited for the show. Yeah, and I just
Yeah.
felt like that scene was kind of evident of that, I guess, and I really appreciated that somewhat. All right, Ash, what are you going to rank this episode?
I'm going to give the episode an 8 and the feels a 7.5.
Okay, Shay?
I gave it an 8 out of 10 and an 8 out of 10.
8 and an 8 out of 10 on the feels. All the feels. I gave the episode an 8, and I also gave the feels an 8. So we can be best buddies over here with similar scores.
Because I agree with you. Like, I think that she was confident. I think she has two different sides to her, and I feel like she felt like she almost had to. She didn't know how to be both of those, or she felt like she had to choose one. I think that was what it was with the whole lesbian lumberjack thing. Lumberjack.
To me, it's that thing that I feel like I've seen often, and even with people I've known, where they fall into being like, oh, I'm gay, so I need to be like, I need to fall into what is a very strict like label or category of what exactly that means. So to her, it was, I'm lumberjack lesbian. Hey everyone, and although she was like in her mind, she's owning what that is. It was just her forcing herself into a label where she didn't particularly need to be, because there's no need for that stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to the next one. Episode 6, called Elrod and Sons. IMDb description reads, a still grieving single father whose wife died of cancer vows to honor her memory by moving forward with their 2 young sons. Ash, what did you think of this episode?
Yeah, another solid episode. Obviously, someone who really needed that extra push, I guess, to move on to the next phase of life. Obviously, a lot of emotional beats. Obviously, it's been 2 years, but still dealing with that loss and trying to raise these 2 kids, and now moving to this massive house. Somehow, how did he get that massive? It was huge. But yeah, solid, really good episode.
That's your whole thing for the show. You're like, it was huge. I can't get the house. I don't know how we handled the house.
I thought this was meant to be a housing crisis.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Cherie.
Oh, this episode, it hit me hard. It hit me hard. Being a mum myself, I think that's, first of all, why it like really got me, because in my mind, all I'm thinking about is like, if that was me, you know, there were so many little things throughout the episode, like the storybook and things that she did for him where she was reading it out loud.
The birthday
and things
cards,
like that. I just,
through to 21.
yeah, all those types of things. It was like, it just kept getting me right in the heart hole, because those are the things that, and I think for me, being a mum, but also having lost my mum to cancer as well, this episode was just a mess for me. Because not only have I been through the process of, packing up a house and moving out of the house with that person, even though, obviously it's a husband and wife and I was the daughter, but I was helping my dad do that, and kind of rebuilding that future that you then have to have without that person. I'm also a mum now, and that's just devastation of leaving your children behind when they're that young is just, yeah. So yeah, it really got me. I really like this episode because I feel like I can see the steps, how difficult they would be to kind of take for him, and how much pressure he would be putting on himself, and to also do all the right things for his kids. But yeah, you can't ever replace a mum, especially if she was the primary carer when they were younger or anything like that. Like, it's just one of those things that he would be trying to look after his kids, but he also needs to take care of himself. And it's all those steps that are really hard to take in that situation where, yeah, you've got responsibilities to your children, but you've got to look after yourself and move forward as well. And yeah, it got me good.
Yeah. I kind of thought, if anyone, it would be, I haven't lost a parent to cancer, thank God, but it still was hitting me quite hard because I know this is a weird thing to say because it's like, obviously you do, Dylan, but I fucking hate cancer as such a like I feel like a passion, and I don't like watching anything to do with it usually. Like if a movie's plotline usually revolves around cancer somewhat, I just steer away from it because I don't like watching stuff. Like there's a lot of comedy dramas and stuff like in the last 10 years where it's like, oh, this person's like, there's even one recently just released on Netflix with fucking Ray Romano and Mark Duplass. I can't remember the name of it. Paddleton, thank you. Which I look at it from a, I look at it, I'm like, I would love to watch this, but I don't think I can because I can't handle, I really hate watching anything to do with cancer. I just don't, it always just hits me horribly, so I stay away from it. So yeah, this.
What? Don't you want to cry?
No, not particularly. No, not particularly. So, right. Yeah, this episode was upsetting, of course, and then it's like cancer's fucked up as it is, and you got to deal with that, and then you also got to deal with the other story of just the general idea of having to like the part where the things engraved, the cabinet thing and all that.
Bro, that got me.
Like when that mum comes in, she's like, looks, I'm like, I can't. Just end me now. This episode just end before. So I feel like I nearly might have cried the most in this one. Weirdly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was definitely a feelsy episode. Any lasting thoughts before we go grab rankings? Okay, so Ash, what are you going to rank the episode?
I'm going to give the episode a 7. I feel like some of the music stuff was kind of shoehorned in and kind of cringy. That kind of put me off.
Really?
Yeah, no, I do agree what you're saying. Yeah.
I don't recall.
But then it feels like a 7.58.
Well, you got to pick a score. I can't put in two numbers into my mathematical occasions.
8. I would an 8.
Okay, an 8 feels. Cherie, episode ranking?
I'd say an 8.5.
And then the feels?
9.5.
Okay, yeah, I was like, are we going to hit our first 10 or? Yeah. Okay.
No, it's okay. There were moments where I wasn't crying. It's all right.
There was
some moments where I wasn't crying. 9.5.
I didn't cry for the full 54 minutes.
10 out of 10. I mean, 9.5 out of 10. All right, let's move on to the next episode, titled Episode 7, Sloth to Slay. A sweet but shy gamer who spent his life in front of a screen, that's me, finds the courage to make new friends and find his tribe. Ash, what did you think of this episode?
I don't know why they needed. Didn't seem to be anything wrong with him. It seems like a perfectly valid way to live your life.
This is most relatable for Ash.
Yeah.
You talk to me every week. What do you mean?
Yeah. Talk to people all the time. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a fine episode, I guess. Sort of push somebody out of their boundaries, outside into the outside world, I guess. It seemed a little on the nose for us, maybe, but that was everything.
Cherie?
Yeah, I have to say, like, I liked this episode, but it didn't really do much for me because it was bordering on that line of the whole, they're looking down, like, not looking down on him, but like his sister was kind of like, all he does is sit in front of his computer and plays his games. Mm-hmm. And to me, I'm just like, yeah, like he's got online friends. Like, why is that a problem? Like, you know, there's those types of things that were kind of bugging me in that respect because obviously, you know, yes, we all go outside, whatever. He probably maybe just sits in front of his computer a lot more than any of us. But do you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with playing games when you're older is my issue with it. Mm-hmm. Or sitting in or having online, having those interests and whatever else. So that's what annoyed me about the episode. Also, I don't understand why sloths are such a big thing these days. So
they're everywhere.
That also annoyed me about the episode. But I thought it was an episode.
It was an episode. You are correct. You are 100% correct with that statement.
I was kind of just like, yeah, this is a good episode, but like you don't need to fix him because he's a gamer. There's obviously other issues.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was fine.
I'm not trying to dismiss everything that happened in the episode because obviously they do help him somewhat with his
yes,
socializing and these sorts of things. And I would say that obviously he has worse social skills than I do. That's for sure. But
no.
what do you mean? Nah. But I didn't like the episode, and I do feel like it just came because although it never quite hit the nail into the head of like shitting on gamers or having online friends or any of these sorts of things, it was constantly like teetering around it to the point that it annoyed me. And I wouldn't blame anyone specifically because no one really does it. No one's ever like, oh, you never hear any one of the Fab Five like, oh, video games, like, why do you play those? Or anything like that. So it's not like I'm like, oh, suddenly I hate one of the Fab Five or something. But it was just the overall mood of the episode. And it could have been the way it was edited. They could have been other scenes where they talk about stuff. There could have been a fucking scene where they ask about D&D and like Jonathan's like, oh, I love the sound of that. That sounds great. But these aren't included in the episode. So it just kind of like teeters around this mood of online friends and games and this sort of stuff is bad. Even though, of course, Kamo does the thing where he hooks him up with other anime fans and says, hey, you like anime? Well, how about you go talk to some anime people in real life? But even with that scene, it got me thinking, is the message here talking to anime friends online is bad, talking to anime friends in real life is good? Like, I know obviously I might be going too far, but it's just kind of how I was kind of taking it in. And it was a weird episode because like I had this thing only a couple of weeks ago where my mum was literally like, Dylan, you need to get more. You need to get out more. Like she literally said to me, you need to get out more. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, get out more, like meet people and stuff. I'm like, but like, and then in my mind, I'm thinking, I spend X amount of hours a week, like talking to you guys and whatever, right? And then X amount of week, I talk to a couple other people, of course, playing video games, what we won't mention. And I talk to people, right? I don't feel like I'm completely antisocial, but I feel like having that stuff mixed in, then like like this sort of episode just makes me have like a negative connotation towards the whole the episode in its full. And I really, really, really did not like his sister. She was fucking pissing me off. To be honest, she just had the whole mood of like, oh, you're shit, like looking down on him and stuff about it. And no, didn't like the sister, couldn't buy into it. There's that scene where they're sitting outside and eventually they hug, and I'm just like, no, get the fuck out of here, dude. Like, you need to move out of this house. You need to get the Fab Five to get you the fuck out of this house because she, I feel, is picking on you. And I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it at all.
Do you know what do you know what the best part about this episode was? When they're looking in his wardrobe and Tan's going through
the Pokemon
clothes.
thing.
He's like, I really like this. And it's the Pokemon bomber jacket.
Yeah, and he's like, do you wear this? And he says no, because obviously he's like, I would wear this.
Yeah. I was like, please do, Tan. Please do. Good choice.
Tan has no idea it's a Pokemon thing, but he's like, oh, the design's great.
It's a cool logo. Interesting logo.
It is. Interesting. Cool logo. The Pokemon logo is, great. All right. Ash, what are you going to rank this episode?
Give it a 7.
Fucking hell.
And then the feels like a 4.
All right. Cherie?
I gave it a 6.5.
And the feels?
And the feels were 4.5.
Okay, so I gave the episode a 3 and I gave the feels a 4. I really did not like this.
Really?
I really, really, really did not like this episode. I didn't have a good time watching this episode at all, in case that wasn't gathered.
Really?
No.
Yeah.
I will say, of course,
surprise!
A lot of that's to do with me, but then also a lot of the reasons you may love episodes of Queer Eye a lot are to do with your personal relationships to them and feelings and sim. So then I do feel like at the complete opposite end, you're allowed to really hate an episode if something's really not clicking for you. And this is that for me. All right, let's move on to the last episode of the season, titled Baby on Board. the one Cherie was hinting about just before. It says, IMDb synopsis says, asking for help is hard for this serial procrastinator, but with his house in disarray and a baby on the way, it's time to step up. Starring Channing Tatum. Ash, what did you think of this episode?
Yeah, it's another solid episode.
You can't say that.
Seems like a nice enough guy.
Everything. Say something different. It's the last episode.
Another very well structured episode. Likeable people. The little kid
characters.
The little kid made this episode. She was really nice. And
she was a nice girl. They took her in. They did the cooking.
Nice. Just over the top. Like Anthony said, little Jonathan.
Yeah, it was because that whole part where she's like does the cookie and then she like walks out of the room just to scream and come back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. Cherie. No, continue.
The only thing is, why did he shave the beard at the end?
We'll get to that. You trust me, we'll fucking get to that shit because the disrespect from this guy drove his episode ranking down. Cherie, what did you think of this episode?
Yeah, one of the funniest parts about this episode was at the end when he proposed to the girlfriend, and
that guy's
there was a
face?
guy at the party that the camera kept like zooming in on, and his face was just like, as if to be like,
this marriage should not happen.
Much. Why did you get this? Why are you so happy? Why do you look so good? Why do you have these clothes? And he was so jelly. I couldn't stop laughing about it, and they kept focusing on him. And he's just like, everyone else is clapping, and the guy's like, it was funny. Anyway, it was a good episode. It was okay. It was another episode. But I think I agree, before Dylan gets in with it, I agree about the beard shaving thing. But I feel like this is what I think about it, is he had, by the end of it, had a renewed confidence that he was felt himself hiding behind the beard. So he shaved it off because he had a renewed confidence, and his girlfriend or partner or whatever, she didn't like it. So he was also doing it for her. But also I think because he had that confidence, he didn't need it anymore. And he was like, bye beard. And now Dylan can tell you what he thinks.
I understand that way of looking at it. I feel like I feel, if I'm going to believe that this guy truly isn't the mega evil that I think he is, then at some point between the Fab Five leaving and later on, he was suddenly like, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I feel pretty great. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to fucking propose now. And you know what I'm going to do before I propose? I'm going to shave this fucking beard off. That's what I'm going to do. So if I'm going to be okay, I have to believe this whole thought process about proposing leads to the beard, and that all happens after Jonathan and the Fab Five leave, of course. But still, motherfucker,
what,
the
in
disrespect.
the 20 minutes after they leave?
Well, that's what it makes it look like in the show. We don't really know, do we? It could have been like 2 hours
I'm pretty
later.
sure that they leave like the day of.
Yeah, but we don't know. Like, hey, time is a fickle beast, Ash.
I'm just gonna go get a ring. Shave my beard.
Hey, no, he had obviously had the ring sitting
Without
around.
the cameras following me.
Shut the fuck up. He had the ring sitting around, obviously, and it's something he'd thought about a lot. But I feel like obviously the reason he hadn't proposed yet was because he was so down on himself. And if I was to I'll take it in and put it into my head of messed upness and put it into like a relatable tube, it would be like, I'm a piece of shit. Why would she say yes? Is kind of the road I would take that on. And then obviously if he's feeling better about himself and he's feeling more confident in himself and why she would like him in the first place and all these sorts of things, then obviously if he's feeling that way, then he's like, now's the chance, now's the time to do it. Fab Five just left, I'm on fucking endorphins, I'm gonna ask her to marry me, let's go for it. But still, with all that said, I was so angry. I was the most angry I feel like I've been in this show when it showed that scene and he just began shaving. And it cut to
Jonathan. To
my favourite's face, Jonathan, the best of the Fab Five. And it showed his... and it showed him...
You hear that?
It showed him break. And I was like, the disrespect I'm seeing right now is absurd. I can't handle it. That's how I feel. Like, I understand everything, and I understand, like, it's like, you can look at it and be like, it's good that he did it because it meant he had more confidence. It meant that he actually grew more confidence after the Fab Five left because of what they did, and that's a good thing. But at the same time, oh my god, I was so annoyed.
No, well, yeah. Why wouldn't you take up this resource to tell you how to shave your face properly? This guy who's told you how to do everything else in your grooming
exactly
routine,
yeah it's like
him?
If you were
thinking about shaving my beard.
If you were even considering it, just have been like, hey Jonathan, help me out.
You seem like a nice guy.
Help me out. But I mean, that's it. Yeah, the other thing is, like, I couldn't relate too much to this episode, but for some reason it was still. It's weird to say. I wasn't relating too much because I definitely would never live in a house like that, right? I'm the kind of person who can kind of let rubbish. I could sit around and binge a bunch of movies and like let the rubbish kind of build up on the coffee table of like fucking snacking out and whatever. And it gets clean the next morning. You know what I mean? Like, that's the extent of my would let that build up. The level of procrastination he has, which is obviously a form of depression and stuff. So I kind of found that relatable. Like, I guess, like, I could understand he was depressed, and I was kind of understanding that. But then at the same time, I'm like, I could be like, wow, I hate everything about my life, but I could not live like that. I feel like I couldn't. That didn't hit me. Like my own depression and stuff definitely doesn't go to doing what he does. Mine kind of. I feel like I'm the opposite. Where if I get like super depressed, it just makes me want to be constantly doing stuff to keep my mind going. Whereas obviously he's just like procrastinating about a lot of very simple household chores. Whereas if it was me and I'd just kind of put on headphones and get them done and be like, I fucking hate my life, but I'll just be doing it. So I couldn't relate too hard there. But at the same time, it was at the same time, it was still hitting me in the feels, even if it wasn't relating, is my point. Which is not usually the case when it comes to this show. I feel like usually if something's hitting me in the feels, it's because I'm somewhat relating to it, even though I'm watching it and I'm like, I feel bad for this dude, but at the same time, I'm not relating to what's happening at all, which is opposite to how I usually feel. Yeah. Any last thoughts on this episode from anyone else?
That was a dope ass fridge.
That's a dope ass fridge.
The fridge with the screen on it.
Yeah, that's
like
just
a smartphone.
That's what everyone has these days. Ash, come on, man. That's what everyone has. The future's here, right? Future is here. What do you?
Crazy.
Future's crazy. What are you gonna rank this episode, Ash?
Episode 7 feels like a 5.
Okay. Cherie, what are you gonna rank this episode?
Episode is 6.5 and a 6.
And the feels, all right. Yeah, I gave the episode a 6. I gave the feels a 7.5 because for some reason it was hitting me, which I found weird. Even though I didn't like the episode as much, it was weird. I don't really understand it, but who understands?
You felt betrayal, and that's what a feeling.
Yeah, the feels was because of anger, not because of. It wasn't good. It wasn't good feels. It was bad feels of anger. That's for sure. Okay, so. Let's go over some rankings before we do any wrapping up thoughts about the overall season. So I'm going to hit you with...
Can I also say one last thing?
Okay.
2 last things, actually.
Yeah, go for
one, I don't like how when you finish the season, it starts up season 1.
I don't like that either, because it starts in, and then all of a sudden your playthrough of that episode says you've started it, and then it shows up in a Netflix thing telling you to continue playing it, and you're like, motherfucker, I have already watched this show.
Everything.
Yes, let me mark this as watched. Netflix, please. If you're listening, let us mark stuff as watched. Thank you. Yeah. Continue, Ash.
They've done that for everything, though. It's
I know,
annoying.
it's horrible. Yeah.
Yep. Other thing, greatest addition of the season, Broly the French Bulldog.
Now, do you want to bring up your point, Cherie? Because we've talked about this before. Was you a big fan of the...
Yeah, great dog.
We're all on board on the dog.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, very good.
Did you guys have any highlight moments of the Fab Five? Like any funny, like I think last season one of the ones was when like Tan gets in the closet in the guy's closet? Like any really funny moments this season or anything like that you took away?
My
from
number
this?
one. All right, so anything with Jonathan because he's the best, and then also the Broly's great. I love dogs. And then number 3 standout moment that kind of just comes to me in my head. No, hold on. I got 2 moments, right? Number 1 is first episode when Tan finds her sexy lacy wear, which is fucking
yes,
camo as well, and then he comes out wearing it. That was quite funny. And then also, funnily enough, my next favorite moment after that sticks out is the Tan moment where they're talking about squirrel and they're like, he says squirrel and then everyone's like, what you just say? And he's like, squirrel. And they're like, it's squirrel, honey. That was quite funny. And I'm 100% on Team Tan, by the way. It's squirrel. Fucking Americans.
Yeah,
Let's
see you. It's been nothing springs to mind. It's been a few weeks, but yeah. No, they're still good.
Do you have moments, Trey, or do you just...
No, there were so many funny moments like usual throughout the season, but I was interested to see if there was anything. But yeah, one of the real funny ones was the camouflage lingerie. That made me laugh quite a bit.
That's quite funny, yes. All right. Yep. So I'm going to hit everyone with... We're going to kind of break them down, and I'm going to tell you what apparently we decided overall was the best episode of the season according to us. So I'm going to give you the feels ranking overall for all of for us, the overall score for each episode, and then the overall score of those combined, deeming a certain episode number 1. So for episode 1, the Explosion Network ranks. I'm rounding up or down. I'm rounding either direction here is what I'm going to do. By the way, Explosion Network ranks episode 1 5.5. Explosion Network ranks episode 2 6 out of 10. Episode 3, we rank at a... Oh, these are feels, obviously. In case I forgot to mention, these are the feels levels. Explosion Network ranks episode 3 feels an 8.5. Explosion Network feels for episode 4 is a 7. Explosion Network feels for episode 5 is an 8. Our feels for episode 6 were an 8.5. Our feels for episode 7 were an all-time low 4. And our feels for episode 6 was 6 out of 10. All right, so then our episode rankings. Episode 1, 7. Episode 2, 7. Episode 3, 8.5. Episode 4, 7. Episode 5, 8. Episode 6, 8. Episode 7, 5.5. That's the lowest ranking episode we have at number 7. Unsurprising, really. We weren't all the biggest fans.
They listen to us.
Yeah, if they listen to us, they'll make a lot of sense. And then the last episode, we ranked 6.5. All right, so some of the feels and the scores match up. Some of the feels and the scores don't match up. Now, our overall rankings for each episode of Queer Eye Season 3 from the Explosion Network. At episode number 1, we have a 6 out of 10. 6.5 actually, if I round it correctly. Let me make sure I get my roundings here correctly. We'll give it a 6.5 overall. Episode 2, 6.5. Episode 3, 8.5. Episode 4, 7. Episode 5, 8. Episode 6, 8. Episode 7, 5. And the last episode, episode 8, we had a 6 out of 10. Which, of course, makes episode 3, unsurprisingly, the winner at 8.5.
Yep.
The best episode, as deemed by the Explosion Network, is episode 3. Our girls over at the barbecue place in Jones's Barbecue.
Buy the barbecue sauce online.
Their sauce.
Yeah,
Their sauce.
The sauce.
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 Thank you very much. All right, that's it. Thank you for joining us on this Explosion Network's first feels discussion of many to come. If they, I suppose,
hopefully,
potentially it'll only ever be about this show. But if you want to, make sure you head on over to youtube.com/Explosion Network for more of our review discussions with less feels, but review discussions nonetheless. Ring the bell there. Give it a big old thumbs up. Feel free to leave your episode feels or rankings in the comments down below, of course. If you want to listen to our review discussions and potential future feels discussions, you can search a podcast app for review discussions by Explosion Network to find the podcast feed for this show, or you can find the links for all of those things I just mentioned, along with much more, including a movie and TV podcast. What do you want to watch over at explosionnetwork.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Vivaladil, Vivaledil. You can follow Ash on Twitter at ASHLEYHOBLEY. You can follow Cherie on Twitter at CHERICORNO. And make sure you follow the Explosion Network on Twitter at ExplosionPod. Bye, everyone. Bye. Until next season, until next video, whatever happens first. Bye. Catch up on the latest TV, online media, movie news from the biggest comic book films to the biggest YouTube crazes to our local cinema scene, and then hear what we've been watching before asking the age-old question, what do you want to watch? Available on all podcast services every second Friday. Just search your podcast app for What Do You Want to Watch and subscribe for free now.